Hello, darkness, my old friend.
The S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100. I'm not going to lie to you. I looked at this chart. I literally got off yesterday after I made the video. Didn't even look at the charts and I was done. I was done for the day. I was like, you know what? Done. Taking a walk, grabbing dinner, hop on a little D4, just relax, right? Okay. I said in the video yesterday, you gotta get above 15.25. Posted on Twitter. I mean, what a rejection, right? You ended up pushing down the rest of the day. Simply put, short-term thesis, WRONG, wrongo. Take accountability. But before we go any further into the video, I want to tell you right now, I still have all my longer dated positions, and I picked up a few more. I ended up ending my position on AMD, so like that position's full now. Like I'm like not adding any more. We hit down to 109. I got a little bit more Netflix, not a lot. I got a little bit more Google when you were down a little bit, but overall those positions kind of were fine. It was the only one that was AMD that kind of dropped a little bit more. UNH looked fine as well for a while today. So all those, again, still in all those positions, but we just didn't get the short-term breakout, which I'm going to go into here in the video. And honestly, next week doesn't look too much better when you look at what's going to be happening. So that's what we're going to be getting into very quick. Now, before we get into that content, I ask you to consider doing two things. Liking and subscribing helps out tremendously. You're not going to waste too much time, but if you're going to be honest, consider liking and subscribing. Also, the Discord link is down below if you're interested. If you are brand new to trading, I think Discord will not help you. This is not a signals Discord. This is a Discord for people who already understand how to trade, but then want to like take that next step to really get to the point where they can trade on their own. That's the ultimate goal here. We do, of course, post what we trade, how we trade it, and why. But we also post a lot of stuff for free. But it's like more of like hand holding along the way, and you get like a watch list and things like that. But I also want to tell you right now, so if you go to the website, the link is down below, go over to home, and you're going to hover over newsletter. We have the newsletter dropping on Sunday every single week, and you can just register right here. You can see the past newsletters if you want to kind of do some research and then understand, you know, why certain things happen in the market, because we cover them. It's absolutely free, and as you can see, there's no like selling point here. It's just free information. Again, if you do not open newsletters weekly, though, just understand you will be taken off the list because, again, I pay for this out of pocket, and we're constantly trimming to see who's opening it, who's not opening it, because it's just a waste of money. I'm, you know, sorry, but it's free, and you at least got to open it in order to stay in it for an extended period of time. But yeah, anyways, that is that. So let's get back to the video. Now, the price action we had today was interesting. And I have a few points I do want to talk about. Now, next week, before we go into all that, you have a few things happening. You have Powell speaking, I believe, 2 times. So you have one of him speaking at like 2 a.m., 2:30 in the morning on Thursday. I have no idea what that entails. It's probably not even important. And then you have him speaking 9:30 a.m. On Wednesday, probably a little bit more important. But again, I want to say one thing. I don't think that's the most important thing. I think Friday will be the most important, personally. I'm going to tell you right now, PC inflation continues to be the major question mark and really either takes us up or down, okay? I have more going into that here in a second, but first I want to say, if you're following on Twitter, okay, I try to post these as much as possible. I said earlier, ES and Nasdaq continue to relax on support. Sellers refuse to increase volume or try to break this level. Until this breaks, it is a buy in my opinion. Risk is very clear here. Short term, watch for VWAP for upside. If you break above VWAP, obviously I think you have upside, like the 5-15 minute chart if you want to look at those. But this is ES, and you can also see the Nasdaq. I mean, clear, right? This is that must break level, which you can't get above, okay? You know, buyers push us up and then sellers do nothing down here. I'm just like, okay, screw it. Okay, we'll just relax here. I guess it's going to be like March or April all over again, right? So when we go back to these levels, you can see that's where we're at. And then, you know, midday, we had some good action. We started to push back up. As you can see, we get that nice push. You know, again, we come back into that demand, and then we push right back up and come back down near the end of the day. And this is kind of the flow of the day. This is the flow of the past, basically like the whole week, right? We push down pre-market, right at market open. During market, sellers don't step in. People aren't establishing positions. We can't get any increased volume. As we look at the week here, you can see at the volume, it's been piss poor all week. Selling volume continues to be pathetic. As you can see, today you get a little bit of pick-me-up, I will say. It's probably because you were going back and forth. Like this morning was a drop, then buyer stepped in, then seller stepped in at the end of the day. So definitely a little bit of a spark here from sellers. I will say that. And your lowest close on the week. But still, I believe you want to see more. But again, I was saying that this week coming up could be dangerous for some downside. This is what Powell had to say basically this morning. And I think it's important that we focus on not necessarily what Powell's saying about rate hikes, because he's going to continue to say the same thing regarding rate hikes. I mean, raising them, pausing them, whatever. He's going to say the same thing on those all the time. It's all data dependent. But when he goes into detail about what's going to dictate those rates, that's the focal point. That's what we got to focus on, okay? And so if you get through all the just and all the jargon, you kind of get to the bottom, okay? And there's a few things. So since past rate hike cycles have seen nominal interest rates above core PC inflation, one can make a case that monetary conditions are still not all that tight, reflected by a resilient economy and a strong stock market. Real interest rates have only recently achieved a neutral condition, but as measured by the current overnight target Fed fund rates in the most recent inflation report. The 500 basis points of tightening over the past 14 months have merely brought rates high enough to match core inflation, which justifies the reason that FOMC remains firm on resuming rate hikes in July. Okay, needless to say, he goes on to go into what's happening, what needs to happen over the course of time. The biggest thing he's talking about here is what core PCE inflation. This week, again, you have PCE inflation on Friday. Now the question is, how does that come out? Again, you're going to see data drop. Like most likely, PCE is going to continue to drop. Not from a core perspective. I can't give that viewpoint yet because we haven't seen core actually start to drop drastically. But from the viewpoint of normal piece, there's PCE, then there's core PCE, right? And basically core discounts energy. And yes, so that's the major thing to understand there. But when you look at PCE, you're hanging on by a thread here on oil. Okay, oil has, we've continued to say it. Oil is on the ledge, right? And if it loses to 67, the 200 MA on the weekly, I believe you're going to start dropping quick. And again, if you don't understand, where did PC CPI list peak out at? Was right up here, June 22nd. Very important that we understand that. You peaked here. What happened there? That's when oil peaked as well and started to drop. So once energy started to lose value and go down, that's when CPI, PPI, and PCE also started to slow and start to drop as well. Okay, so we need to understand that this is the biggest factor when it comes into what's happening here and with expectations on inflation. So I always say you need to be watching this kind of over everything if you have expectations or trying to play some of this inflation data. Okay, got that out of the way. So going into next week, this is very important. I would be watching. I think there's a high chance you break down here. You look at something like DXY as well, and it looks very similar to the oil chart. Descending triangle wants to break down as well. Not very strong. I can go on and on about this. Despite them talking about rate hikes most likely continuing, you had a little bit of a downside day on yields. But again, you need to see actual downside, and you need to break trend. You need to break under the 90 EMA. You need to start pushing down. We're not pushing down. So until that happens, there's no point in even discussing this from a good point of view. What I will say is that inversion continues to remain relevant and high. And you can also see Powell does mention what's happening with the curve. Okay, you see right here, sorry, I couldn't speak. I was trying to think of where it was. How long the yield curve will remain inverted before the Fed pivots towards an easing policy stance. Again, he's also looking at the curve. He's looking at, I think, the 3 over 18 month, 3 months over 18 months. I believe that's what it is. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that's what he's looking at. You can Google it if you want to see it real quick. I've gone over it before. So that's the biggest points in the market for next week. And if I lost you, ask a question down below. I'd love to answer the question. I'm trying to just push this one out as quickly as possible. So going into this, okay, what are my expectations? What are my views? What do I like? Still like all the same stocks. If you missed any of the stocks I'm liking, go over yesterday's video, the day before that, or the day before that. Still think Google undervalued in comparison to other names. I like AMD even more here. You fill the gap down to 109. You look strong. Going, a little bit further, you're having Bitcoin have a nice rally as well. You did have a little bit of pressure here from the Russell. I will say that. For instance, on the IWM, you had a really good chart drawn out by TrendSpider, I believe, on the day. So if you look at what's happening here, you kind of operated it in this channel for like 3 months. What was it? 2 months, give or take, from March into like the 3 months, basically. So March all the way into the beginning of June. And then you got the breakout, which was really nice for the market. And then look, as you can see now, we are testing back the top of this level, getting a retest, which is also the 200 daily moving average as well. Then you go into this is the IWM, which is like the SPY equivalent to ES, and you go into the Russell, which is the equivalent to IWM. It's getting the same level push. Okay, you can see you're coming right back into that major level. So I would love to see the reaction that we do get here from the Russell, if the Russell can get buyers and you start to bounce from the retest of previous highs. Okay, this is definitely something that's interesting. We need to be watching, and I definitely am watching this. A lot of the downside, in my opinion, today came on something like the Dow. If you look at what happened to the Dow today, was not good. Okay, it was not good. PMI data definitely hit the Dow. This is one of the few times we've seen PMI underperform over the past few months, and it definitely took the Dow to the downside. Definitely was the sector, in my opinion, that took a lot of the pain. Now, granted, Nasdaq opened up red and you pushed down, but Nasdaq ended up getting a little bit of green, pushing up throughout the day. But the Dow kind of just kept trending down. Okay, so that's what I'm also watching here, is what's happening specifically here on the Dow as we move forward. But I still like where we're at. I still think you're making higher lows here on the Dow. You zoom out here on the daily, you can still see it's a clear ascending triangle. You're trying to push back up. You're trying to break out. You're trying to get that exactly what you want, exactly what you need here. So again, there's no reason to panic. But again, ultimately, there's two areas you're watching here. You got that bull flag kind of formed out here on Nasdaq. You're still grinding with the 90 MA on the daily chart. You're trying to hold, trying to push up, but you got to break back above 15.25. Okay, you got to do it. Number two, ES. I would have loved to see you hold 4,400 on the weekly close. You did not. But if we zoom out to the weekly, I mean, all in all, not terrible. You're not even retesting, 43.28, 43.30. Still look good in my opinion. I mean, in comparison, Dow and Russell are doing the retest. Nasdaq and ES are still holding up at very high levels. On top of that, you have the biggest stock in the market. You're looking at Apple. Guess what? It continues to make 50, all-time highs, not even 52-week highs. It continues to do its thing. Exactly what we want to see it happen. So as long as we're seeing like this pressure being pushed into the market, personally, I just don't feel that concerned. So that's what I'm watching here. Again, I'll have these posted on Twitter so you can stay updated. But again, as we're sitting at support, I expect us not to break support. I'm not going to short the support. If we break down and retest, then yes, I'll probably go short. But until that happens, you have to be looking for the upside. There's no reason to push a trade that isn't there. Again, today's video is kind of short. If you have any questions, comment down below. I'll see you guys hopefully on Sunday. I also have an educational video on the second channel. Have a good one, traders.